Most people want success. They want to become disciplined. They want to stay consistent with their goals. They want to build strong habits and achieve things that most people only dream about. But there is a problem. Almost everyone wants consistency, yet very few people actually become consistent. People start strong. They feel motivated in the beginning. They promise themselves that this time they will stay focused, work hard, and never quit. But after a few days or a few weeks, something changes. Motivation fades. Distractions appear. Excuses begin to sound reasonable. Suddenly, the same person who was determined to work every day starts skipping days. The same person who promised to stay disciplined begins negotiating with their own laziness. This cycle repeats again and again. And eventually, many people start believing something dangerous. They start believing that they are simply not disciplined enough. But Stoic philosophy offers a very different perspective. The Stoics believed that consistency is not about motivation. It is not about waiting for the right mood or the perfect moment. Consistency is about character. It is about building a mind that does not depend on emotions to take action. A mind that acts according to reason and commitment rather than temporary feelings. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, understood this deeply. Despite ruling an empire, facing wars, political pressure, and endless responsibilities, he constantly reminded himself of one simple principle: do the work that must be done, not when it feels easy, not when it feels exciting, but when it is necessary. The Stoics knew that the difference between ordinary people and extraordinary people is often very simple. Ordinary people act when they feel motivated. Disciplined people act whether they feel like it or not. This ability to move forward without depending on emotion is what creates real consistency. And consistency is powerful. Small actions repeated every day become unstoppable over time. A person who improves only a little each day eventually becomes far stronger than someone who relies on occasional bursts of motivation. This is why Stoic philosophy focuses so heavily on discipline and mental strength. The Stoics believed that life will always present obstacles, discomfort, and distractions. Waiting for perfect conditions is a mistake because perfect conditions rarely exist. Instead, the goal is to build a mindset that continues working regardless of circumstances. In this video, we will explore 5 powerful Stoic lessons that can help you become dangerously consistent. These lessons are not comfortable. They are not easy, but they are effective. They will show you how to eliminate excuses, control your emotions, strengthen your discipline, and build habits that make progress inevitable. Because the truth is simple. Success does not belong to the most talented person. Success does not belong to the most motivated person. Success belongs to the person who shows up and does the work every single day. And that kind of consistency is exactly what Stoic philosophy was designed to build. Part 1. Discipline is more important than motivation. Most people believe that motivation is the key to success. They wait for the moment when they feel inspired, energetic, and ready to work. When that feeling appears, they become productive for a short time. But when the motivation disappears, their effort disappears with it. This is why so many people struggle with consistency. Their actions depend on how they feel in the moment. If they feel good, they work. If they feel tired, bored, or distracted, they stop. Stoic philosophy rejects this way of thinking completely. The Stoics believe that relying on motivation is a weakness. Motivation is unstable because emotions constantly change. Some days you feel powerful and determined. Other days you feel lazy, stressed, or discouraged. If your discipline depends on emotions, your progress will always be unstable. Marcus Aurelius understood this problem very clearly. In his personal writings, he often reminded himself of a simple truth. A person should get up and do their duty. even when they do not feel like it. He compared human beings to tools designed for a specific purpose. A knife is meant to cut, a horse is meant to run, and a human being is meant to work, think, and act with reason. From a Stoic perspective, avoiding necessary work because you do not feel motivated is like a tool refusing to do its job. This idea may sound harsh, but it reveals something important about discipline. Discipline means acting according to principles instead of emotions. When you decide that something is important, whether it is exercising, studying, building a business, or improving your skills, you do not wait for the perfect mood. You simply do the work. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The mind naturally searches for easier options. It creates excuses and distractions. It tells you that you deserve rest, or that tomorrow will be a better day to start. But every time you ignore those excuses and take action anyway, you strengthen your discipline. Think of discipline like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Every day that you choose action over excuses makes the next decision slightly easier. This is why Stoic thinkers focused on building habits instead of chasing inspiration. Habits remove emotional negotiation. When something becomes a habit, you stop asking yourself whether you feel like doing it. You simply do it because it has become part of your daily routine. Consider the difference between someone who occasionally exercises when they feel motivated and someone who trains every morning at the same time. The first person depends on emotions. Their progress will be inconsistent. The second person depends on routine. Their progress becomes almost guaranteed. This is the power of Stoic discipline. It shifts your focus away from temporary feelings and toward long-term commitment. You stop asking questions like, "Do I feel motivated today? Am I in the right mood to work?" Instead, you ask a much simpler question. What must be done today? And once you know the answer, you do it. Over time, this mindset creates a powerful form of consistency. While others wait for motivation to appear, you continue moving forward. While others stop when things become difficult, you continue working because discipline has become part of your identity. This is why Stoic philosophy considers discipline one of the most important virtues a person can develop. Because motivation can disappear at any moment, but discipline, once built, can carry you forward even on your worst days. And those days, when you work without motivation, are the days that truly separate consistent people from everyone else. Part 2. Stop negotiating with your own mind. One of the biggest reasons people fail to stay consistent is something very simple, but very powerful. They constantly negotiate with their own mind. Every time they need to do something difficult, their mind begins a conversation. Maybe I should start tomorrow. I worked hard yesterday. I deserve a break. I'll do it later when I feel more focused. These thoughts sound harmless, but over time they destroy discipline. The Stoics understood something important about the human mind. The mind naturally searches for comfort and avoids discomfort. This is normal. It is part of human nature. But if you always follow the easiest option, your life will slowly become weaker and more chaotic. Marcus Aurelius wrote many reminders to himself about this exact problem. He often spoke about the struggle of getting out of bed early to do his duties as emperor. His mind would tell him to stay comfortable under the blankets, but he would immediately respond to that thought with reason. He reminded himself that he was born to act, not to hide from responsibility. This is a powerful Stoic practice. Instead of letting your mind control your actions, you confront your thoughts with logic. When your mind says, "This is too hard," you answer with reason. You remind yourself why the work matters. You remind yourself that avoiding difficulty only creates bigger problems later. You remind yourself that every moment of discipline builds strength. The Stoics believe that the mind must be trained the same way the body is trained. If you let your mind win every small argument, it becomes stronger in the wrong way. It becomes skilled at creating excuses. Soon your mind will find a way to justify almost anything. Skipping workouts, avoiding responsibilities, procrastinating important work. But when you stop negotiating with your mind, everything begins to change. You create a simple rule for yourself. Once something is decided, there is no debate. If you decided to train today, you train. If you decided to study, you study. If you decided to work, you work. No discussion. This removes a huge amount of mental weakness, because every time you negotiate with your mind, you give excuses a chance to win. But when the decision is already final, excuses lose their power. At first, this mindset feels strict. Your mind will resist it. It will try harder to create distractions and emotional arguments. But if you remain firm, the mind slowly adapts. Over time, your brain stops expecting negotiation. It understands that once something is decided, it will happen. This is when consistency becomes much easier. You are no longer fighting the same internal battle every day. Instead of debating with yourself for 20 minutes about whether to start working, you simply begin. This saves enormous mental energy. It also builds self-respect, because every time you follow through on a decision, you prove something to yourself. Your word matters. Many people lose confidence because they constantly break promises they make to themselves. They promise to wake up early but hit the snooze button. They promise to work hard but give up after a few days. Eventually they stop trusting their own discipline. But when you stop negotiating and start acting consistently, something powerful happens. You begin trusting yourself again. You know that when you decide something, it will be done, and that trust creates one of the strongest forms of discipline possible. Because once you believe in your own ability to follow through, consistency stops feeling like a struggle. It simply becomes who you are. Part 3. Accept discomfort as part of the process. One of the biggest reasons people fail to stay consistent is that they expect the process to feel comfortable. They imagine success as something exciting, motivating, and enjoyable every day. They believe that if they have the right passion or the right mindset, the work will always feel good. But reality is very different. Every meaningful goal includes periods of boredom, frustration, fatigue, and doubt. Some days the work feels heavy, some days progress feels slow, and some days you may question whether your effort is even worth it. This is exactly where most people quit. They assume that discomfort means something is wrong. They think that if the work feels difficult or unpleasant, maybe they are not meant for it. Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite idea. The Stoics believed that discomfort is not a problem. It is a natural part of growth. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, explained that just as the body becomes stronger through physical resistance, the mind becomes stronger through difficulty and challenge. If life were always comfortable, strength would never develop. Think about physical training. When someone lifts weights or runs long distances, the body experiences strain and fatigue. Muscles burn, breathing becomes heavy, and the effort feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is exactly what builds strength. The same principle applies to discipline and consistency. Every time you continue working despite discomfort, you strengthen your mental resilience. When you study even though you feel tired, you strengthen focus. When you exercise even when your body feels heavy, you strengthen discipline. When you continue pursuing your goals despite frustration, you strengthen perseverance. Each of these moments is like a mental workout, but many people misunderstand this process. They try to eliminate discomfort completely. They look for shortcuts, easier routines, or perfect conditions where everything feels smooth and enjoyable. Unfortunately, this approach rarely leads to real progress. The Stoics understood that discomfort is not an enemy. It is simply a signal that you are pushing your limits. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that difficulty is part of the human experience. Instead of avoiding it, he trained his mind to accept it calmly. When something felt difficult, he did not complain. He simply focused on doing the task with discipline. This mindset creates powerful consistency, because when you stop fearing discomfort, obstacles lose much of their power. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," you begin thinking, "This is part of the process." That small shift in perspective changes everything. You stop expecting every day to feel perfect. You understand that progress includes uncomfortable days, and because you accept those days, instead of resisting them, you continue moving forward while others stop. Over time, this builds extraordinary mental strength. You become someone who can tolerate boredom, effort, and temporary frustration without losing focus. And that ability is extremely rare. In modern life, many people have become addicted to comfort. They seek constant entertainment, constant stimulation, and immediate pleasure. As a result, their tolerance for difficulty becomes very low. Even small challenges feel overwhelming. But someone who trains themselves to accept discomfort becomes incredibly resilient. They do not panic when things feel hard. They simply continue working. And because of this, they slowly separate themselves from the majority of people who quit whenever the process becomes uncomfortable. This is one of the most powerful Stoic lessons for consistency. Do not expect the process to feel easy. Expect it to feel difficult sometimes. And when those difficult moments appear, remind yourself of something simple. Discomfort is not stopping you. It is strengthening you. Part 4. Focus on the process, not the result. One of the biggest reasons people lose consistency is that they become obsessed with results. They constantly check whether they are progressing fast enough. They compare their achievements with others. They expect quick rewards for their efforts. When those rewards do not appear immediately, frustration begins. A person might start exercising for a few weeks and expect to see dramatic changes in their body. When progress feels slow, motivation disappears. Someone might begin working on a business or learning a new skill and expect rapid success. When results take longer than expected, they feel discouraged. This obsession with results creates emotional instability. Stoic philosophy offers a much healthier approach. Instead of focusing on outcomes, the Stoics focused on the process. They believed that a person should measure success by the quality of their effort, rather than by immediate results. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this idea often. He reminded himself that the only thing truly within our control is our own action. We can control our discipline. We can control our effort. We can control our attitude toward challenges. But outcomes depend on many factors outside our control. When people attach their happiness to outcomes, they create unnecessary pressure. They feel anxious about results that they cannot fully control. But when they focus on the process, their mind becomes calmer and more stable. Think about someone who trains every day simply because they value discipline. Their goal is not just to achieve a result. Their goal is to become the type of person who shows up every day. This mindset removes emotional dependency on success. Instead of thinking, "I must see results immediately," they think, "My job is simply to do the work today." And that simple shift creates powerful consistency. Because when your only responsibility is to follow the process, the task becomes much easier. You no longer feel overwhelmed by distant goals. You focus on small actions. Today's workout, today's study session, today's work. Each day becomes a simple step forward. Over time, these small steps accumulate. One day of discipline may not seem important, but 100 days of discipline transform a person completely. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that meaningful achievements require patience and steady effort. They did not rush the process or demand instant rewards. Instead, they trusted that consistent action would eventually produce results. This is one of the most powerful habits you can develop. Stop measuring your success by how quickly things change. Measure it by how consistently you follow the process. If you show up today and do the work, that day is a success. If you repeat that tomorrow and the next day, progress becomes inevitable. Over time, something remarkable happens. The process itself becomes rewarding. You begin to enjoy the discipline. You begin to value the structure and purpose it brings to your life. And when that happens, consistency stops feeling like a struggle. It simply becomes part of who you are. This is why Stoic philosophy teaches that success is not created by chasing results. Success is created by committing fully to the process. When you master the process, results eventually follow. But even before they arrive, you will have already built something far more valuable, a disciplined and consistent character. Part 5. Become the person who never breaks their word. The final Stoic lesson for becoming dangerously consistent is simple but extremely powerful. Become the kind of person who never breaks their word, especially the promises you make to yourself. Most people lose consistency because they constantly break small commitments. They promise themselves they will wake up early, but they press the snooze button. They promise themselves they will start working on their goals, but they get distracted by entertainment. They promise themselves they will stay disciplined, but after a few days they return to old habits. At first, these broken promises seem small, but over time they create a serious problem. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your mind slowly stops trusting you. You begin to feel less confident in your own discipline. You start believing that your goals are just ideas instead of real commitments. This is why Stoic philosophy places so much importance on personal integrity. Integrity means that your actions match your words. When a Stoic decides to do something, that decision carries weight. It is not treated like a suggestion or a temporary feeling. It becomes a commitment. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to live according to reason and duty. He believed that a person's character is revealed through their daily actions, not through their intentions. Many people have good intentions. They want to improve their lives, they want to become disciplined and successful. But intentions alone mean nothing without consistent action. What matters is whether you follow through. The Stoics understood that self-respect grows from reliability. When you prove to yourself that your word matters, your confidence becomes stronger. Imagine a person who always follows through on their commitments. If they decide to work, they work. If they decide to train, they train. If they decide to improve, they take action immediately. Over time, this person becomes extremely reliable, not just to others but to themselves. Their mind understands that once a decision is made, it will be executed. This creates powerful consistency. There is no internal debate. There is no constant questioning about whether they should act. They simply act. This mindset removes one of the biggest obstacles to discipline: hesitation. Hesitation often leads to procrastination. The longer you delay action, the easier it becomes to abandon your commitment. But when you develop a reputation with yourself as someone who always follows through, hesitation disappears. You know that when you make a decision, it will be honored. This creates a strong identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries to be disciplined. You begin seeing yourself as someone who is disciplined. And identity is incredibly powerful. When consistency becomes part of your identity, it no longer requires constant effort. It becomes natural. You show up every day, not because you feel motivated, but because that is simply the kind of person you have chosen to become. The Stoics believed that character is built through repeated actions. Every disciplined decision strengthens your identity. Every completed commitment reinforces your reliability. Over time, this creates unstoppable consistency. Because once you become the person who never breaks their word, excuses lose their power. Your decisions become final. And when your word becomes stronger than your emotions, you develop one of the most powerful qualities a person can have. You become someone who can be trusted by others and by yourself. That kind of person is extremely rare, and that is exactly why they succeed where most people fail.